Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the plethora of free trade or alleged free trade deals that India is doing with anyone they can sign up, whether it's Australia or Britain or the European Union, America, Canada, anywhere and everywhere they can sign these free trade deals. You're sort of wondering why is the Indian government suddenly gone on this sort of frantic free trade deal signing, and what's the purpose of what's sort of going on in background here, and what do we need to know? Well, there's a few things that we do need to know. India has one of the largest amount of young people of any population in the world. Now, on top of that, the Indian population is now 1.4 billion. So the average age of the Indian population, depending on whose figures you look at, is somewhere between 26 and 27 years old. That's the average age of the entire population. Now, there's two reasons for this. One is, India is a basket case shithole, and so there's a lot of people who don't make it into old age there. And there's been the prosperity that they've had, which has been quite modest in the overall scheme of things. The prosperity they've had has led to there's like out of the 1.4 billion, you've got 1.1 billion that are peasants. And the minute they're even slightly more prosperous than they were the day before, they'll procreate like mad. So you've had this massive population explosion. And just to give you the sort of the scale of it, the amount of people in India who, in the last 12 months have turned 18 years old or 17 years old, is nearly 14 million just in 1 year have turned. So they've entered the workforce looking for work, and there's not many of them can afford college education and that sort of thing. So most of them have got pretty basic high school education at best. But so they're entering the workforce now. To absorb that many new workers, the Indian population of the Indian economy needs to grow by about 10% a year. And that's just to break even. That's not even to get ahead. That's just to break even, which is, again, an illustration of how population mass does nothing other than reduce the per capita wealth of the citizenry. That's all it achieves. And that's what it's achieving when all these masses of brown and black peasants come to the West, forced and led there and assisted and aided and abetted there by the globalist cabal against the wishes and the will of the local Western population. But coming back to India now, so they need economic growth about 10% per year just to break even with that many new people coming into the workforce. Now, India you can hardly call it a productive place. I mean, just an average, it's between 1/5 and 1/6 as productive for those who are working, as say any equivalent Western business or manufacturing concern or whatever. The only thing the Indians have, and nothing other than this, is cheap labor and masses of it. It is a corrupt, inefficient, dirty basket case. So it's not a surprise that people want to get out of there and flock to, anywhere, and the West preferably. I mean, they don't want to flock to other poor countries. They seem to want to flock to the rich Western countries. But anyway, so 10% economic growth is pie in the sky. They're just not going to get it. So when you look at even economic growth rates, which are hardly unreasonable, of say 4% or even 5%, the economic growth, the take up in all these workers coming into the workforce doesn't really sort of hit until about 7 to 8% growth. So a growth of 4 or 5% may sound, well, hey, that's not too bad, but really it only chips away at the bottom. So of the 12 million, 14 million new workers coming in to the workforce, at 4 or 5% growth, that's only going to draw in 2 million, with not many well-paid jobs in that, for goodness sakes. So India has at least 10 to 12 million new workers each year that have got nothing to do, nowhere to go, many of them not being able to afford college, that sort of thing. So what does the Indian government do? That's not a desirable thing to have that many young people running around. Many of them peasants living volatile existence. That's a recipe for some pretty serious social unrest. So what does the Indian government want to do? We gotta fucking export these people. This is a surplus population. We don't want them here. We want them anywhere but here. Let's get the fuck rid of them off to these evil white supremacist fascist Nazi countries. So they sign these trade deals. Let's get a couple of million over to America, a few hundred things, 500,000 to Canada, 500,000 to Australia, a few million to Europe, and before you know it, we've exported our Now some of these go as students, so they might, a million of them may come to Britain, for example, and they're ostensibly coming to study and living with relatives or whatever. But or some maybe get short-term work visas, that sort of thing. But the majority are not going to go back. Out of the million that arrive, a good 900,000 will stay. And so they're because India has such a massive population and a massive surplus population, they're swamping the rest of the world with their fucking surplus population. Now, India's got a problem there, but the government was not unaware of the population explosion, and yet it took no measures, or whatever measures that they took were unsuccessful. So they knew this was going to be the end game. One wonders, having a surplus population they wanted to get rid of, one wonders if the globalists actually put them up to it. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, given the globalist maniacal desire to flood the white West with as many black and brown people as they can lay their hands on. But anyway, this is what's going on, and this is why it's happening. Now, I don't know. I just, from my own point of view, if any Indian wants to immigrate and they really have internationally recognised skills, not because India's a corrupt basket case. So most of the people, not all, but most of the people got degrees, just bribed some fucking college professor to give them a degree. They don't know shit. They haven't studied anything. So but for Indians who have genuine skills and knowledge and credentials and qualifications, and the Western economy in question genuinely needs those and needs them now. They can't afford to wait, for example, 5 years for someone to be trained or that sort of thing. Then I don't mind if Indians, suitably qualified Indians for needed skills are coming to the world. I don't mind it. If that happens, I'm all for it. If Indians want to come as students, study in the world, I don't care. That's fine by me. Or come as tourists or something, not a problem. Spend as much money as you can in the local businesses. But when even short-term work visas, if there's a genuine need for certain workers, I don't mind that either. But Indians are among the worst immigrants, in my view, you can possibly get. Now, economically, okay, after they do look for jobs and so on. They it's alleged they study hard at school, although they never did any good until the politically correct affirmative action education came in. Only then did they start to do well. So I don't know about that, but otherwise, Indians are the worst immigrants you possibly have. They do not integrate, will not integrate, refuse to integrate. And, and I've mentioned this in other videos, Indians who went to Fiji in 1850, so 1850, they arrived in Fiji, and the integration rate is still, like 2 or 3%. So, and that's, it's 170 years of generations on, 6, 7, 8 generations on, they're still not integrating. Same goes for Indians that arrived in Britain in the late 1940s. They haven't integrated. The integration rate again is less than 1%. Same in Australia, less than 1%. Indians are very, very determined to keep themselves genetically pure and believe themselves to be spiritually and morally superior to all other people, particularly white people. So they're not going to integrate, and they become their own special nation within a nation. where they demand, bit like others do, they demand, special rights, special dispensation. We want our people represented in Parliament. We want our people in the councils. We want our people in the public service, as if there's some sovereign nation within the fucking nation. So that they make, in my view, they make terrible immigrants. They want to come with short-term work visas, fine. So we've not only got a situation where they make terrible immigrants, in my opinion, but they're also exporting Indians by the gazillion all around the world at a frantic pace. Now, this pace of exporting the surplus population is going to continue for at least another 20 years, as I see it. So this means in that time, somewhere between 250 million plus Indians will be exported all over the Western world, because these people don't want to go to the poor countries. They only want to go to the rich white countries. Now, if you look at that in some perspective, that would make Indians, at the very least, the majority in most currently, of what are white countries today, would make Indians the majority in a lot of white countries, or at the very least, if not an absolute majority, certainly the second most prevalent race of people. Now, they keep to their own race. That, as far as they're concerned, 150, 200 years on, they're Indians, and they want to be looked after and feted and respected and have a goodie showered upon them in Bakshi style. They want to have their special recognition for their completely independent culture, which is unique, and they want that culture to remain homogenous and unsullied by intermarriage or procreation or anything like that. So they make the worst migrants, and yet they're being exported now to the tune of 8 to 10 million unwanted people every year. It's a recipe for fucking disaster. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.